If you know anything about me at all, it's that this little two-player game by Wise Wizard Games is my favourite game of all time. And I shouldn't have to say anything more than that. That is why you should play it. 'Cause it's awesome. End of video. But apparently a 4-second video isn't good enough for the YouTube gods. So I'm gonna have to flesh this one out a little and go into depth, and so there are no misunderstandings, why you should play Star Realms. Star Realms, or certainly the core deck, is a 2-player space battle game by Magic the Gathering Hall of Famers Darren Castle and Rob Doherty. Each player starts with an identical deck of 10 cards made up of 8 Scouts and 2 Vipers. The first player draws 3 cards and the other player 5 from their respective decks, and this is their hand for their turn. The gold coins depicted on the Scouts are called trade, and are how you purchase cards from the trade row, which is a row of 5 cards in the middle of the table that both players have access to. The red number on the Vipers are damage, and needs to be subtracted from the other player's authority, which is effectively their health, unless they have an outpost in play that would protect them, in which case you must first destroy the outpost before you can access their health pool. Throughout the game you buy cards and put those cards in your discard pile. When you run out of cards to draw from your deck, you shuffle your discard pile and this becomes your new draw deck. The whole game is essentially trying to improve your deck as much as possible in as little time as possible, because your opponent will be doing the same and will be whittling away at your authority, just like you will be whittling away at their authority. The ideal scenario is that you're scrapping those starter set of cards from your deck entirely, whilst also buying the strongest available cards from the trade row at any given time. Thus meaning in future draws, you draw less of those naff starter cards, and instead the shiny big boy cards that are here to mess your opponent up. There are 4 different factions in the game: the Trade Federation, the Blobs, the Star Empire, and the Machine Cult. Each faction has their own strengths they tend to focus on. For example, the Machine Cult is all about scrapping cards you no longer want and doing damage. The Star Empire focuses on drawing cards and making your opponent discard cards, and the Trade Federation are all about having you gain authority and giving you trade to spend on the trade row. The Blobs are heavy damage dealers, and also let you scrap cards from the trade row. Ideally you want to focus on 2, maybe 3 factions at the most, because having too many different colored cards in your hand means that you're less likely to trigger ally abilities. Ally abilities trigger when you have multiple of the same faction in play in a single turn, and can be your secret weapon to winning the game. Except that it's not so secret. The game ends as soon as someone's authority hits 0 or below. It's a fairly quick game that lasts about 15 minutes when played in real time, especially once you get to know the cards and you have proven strategies at work. The game is all about adapting to the ever-changing trade row, to what your opponent is doing, but also trying to do what's best for yourself. It's all a balance of skill and luck. Whilst what comes up in the trade row and what you draw is entirely down to pure luck, what you do with what you're given is a skill, no matter what the haters say. It's also a game where anything is possible, where nothing is truly over until it's over. One of my favourite stories to tell when I'm going on and on and on about how much I love the game and why everyone should play it with me is of the moment when I realised that Star Realms was the game for me. I was playing a game this one time and I was absolutely annihilating the competition. It got to a point where I was on something like 64 authority, bearing in mind you start with 50, and my opponent was on 3, and I thought to myself, okay, well, this game is over, I've clearly won, let's just finish this. And waited for my opponent to take their turn. And then suddenly, they played card after card, and I had to watch the damage counter tick up and up and up, and all of a sudden they did over 64 damage in one turn. I was on 64, and they were on 3. I was honestly incredibly annoyed about it, but I was also like, yes! Because who doesn't love an underdog story? And I have not questioned my love for the game since. And if the excellent gameplay in Star Realms isn't enough, it's also seeped in lore. Set in a futuristic space timeline, spice! There's a story behind each of the 4 factions involved that perfectly backs up how they play in the game too. The Blue Trade Federation are a corporate leadership which rules over Earth and its surrounding colonies. They focus on trade and diplomacy when it comes to dealing with the other Star Realms. The Green Blobs are the first alien life forms that the human race encountered, an incredibly hostile one at that. Early encounters between the humans and the Blobs usually ended with human colonies being entirely obliterated, and even now only the most daring traders will attempt to make trade deals with the gelatinous creatures. The Yellow Star Empire is set on the outskirts of the Federation and is made up of former colonies that were part of the Trade Federation, but felt used by the corporate leadership and annoyed about being left to deal with the blob invasion without any support. A single colonial governor took it upon themselves to proclaim themselves leader of the Star Empire and offers protection to any colonies wishing to join it. The Red Machine Cult is made up of a cluster of industrial mining colonies that were cut off from the rest of the Trade Federation by the blob's destruction of nearby worlds. With no contact with the rest of humanity and an ever-existing fear of annihilation by the blobs, a new religion was born. One of technology to create defenses and military for protection. I mean, the creators of Star Realms put more work into creating a world in which this simple card game was set than some people put into the storyline of a certain massive space-based movie franchise I'm not gonna name. I want to watch a movie or a series based in the world that Star Realms was built.
The mining planet Aradel is being ravaged by civil war. Aradel's ruling council has called for your kingdom's aid, promising valuable mining rights should you put down the resistance. High Admiral Molan volunteers for the mission. Your longtime mentor, Minister Sadius, has instead convinced your father, King Regalan, to give you your first fleet command for this mission. Reward his decision by destroying the rebel fleet and winning Aradel's loyalty to your father's kingdom.
There are 80 cards in the base deck, and both players use the same deck of cards, meaning you don't need to shell out a bunch of money to play, and at about £15 or less at retail, it's really not a massive commitment, even if you're unsure to begin with. If you played the base game and have decided you love it, you're gonna love it. There are also plenty of expansions, big and small, for you to get into if you're so inclined. One of my favourites is the kickstarted Star Realms Frontiers that also introduced single player and cooperative mode where you play together against a big alien. And if that's still not enough for you, Star Realms has a very handy and pretty decent app version that has all the expansions on it, is cross-platform and entirely free, unless you want to play with people online. The app is ever expanding and the creators are constantly adding new ways for us to enjoy the game. From story-based campaigns to an arena where the rules change every week, and most recently, regular tournaments that you can enter to compete with people online. I think it's pretty clear by now that I love the game and I can't say a bad word about it. Having said that, some people, they're far and few between, don't enjoy the game because it's too random. But that's just card games, to be honest. I will list some of the places that you can get the game physically and digitally in the description below. Maybe I'll see you in the arena sometime. Thank you very much for listening to me telling you why Star Realms is awesome and why you should play it. If you enjoyed this video, there are plenty more for you to check out, some of which should be popping up on the screen right about now. Did it work? Thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day.